Having read through them.
Roll call.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you.
All right, I guess we will, do you want to start off with, section 18 that you were gonna,
Sure. So let me. Okay, so section 18, vote required. This was the conversation about whether we wanted to have anything where 4 affirmative votes would be required to pass an item. So I was not able to find very many examples where this occurs. One exception is Lebanon. They also have 7 members and they do require 4 affirmative votes for all action. And then the only other one I could find in some of the other cities I looked at outside of the ones we've been using for comparison is in Beaverton. They also have 7. And if they find a fellow counselor to have violated certain provisions of their charter, they need 5 out of 7 to remove the counselor. But those were the only 2 that I found. So in the absence of examples, I just tried to think of some potential categories where you might want to require 4 votes. So for example, that could be the hiring or firing of the city manager, the judge, or the attorney. And in Brownsville, they require a majority of the seated body to fill vacancies. If there's a council vacancy, you could do land use decisions require 4 out of 7. So for example, a zone change or something related to development, you could require it for utility rate changes, or maybe above a certain percentage require it for utility rate changes. You could require it if there are changes to city code, for censure or discipline of other members, or if you would like to approve an ordinance with an emergency clause. But those are just, again, I just kind of made those up because there weren't a whole lot of actual examples.
Josh?
For that, I'll stand by what I was saying last time, and have very strong opinions about four yes votes in this city, since there's a 7 council member minimum, however that's worded. It hasn't distracted from that, so I'm pretty passionate about that one.
And that would be for all business,
Yeah.
correct?
If I may, based on what we passed last meeting on, which was section, I believe it was 16, where we said that the mayor would only vote to break a tie. What we would be doing by having a 4 majority for anything is setting the stage. It would then require essentially a supermajority for anything to pass if we were to do that, because we've excluded the mayor from voting except to break a tie. And so with the other 6, you've got to have 4-2 to pass anything. And I'm not sure that we want to hamstring our city council to that. And having said that, if we are going to continue discussions of this, I think that before we do, that we would want to, and I voted on the prevailing side, and Robert's rules say that anyone that votes on the prevailing side of something may bring it up for reconsideration. And I think we might want to reconsider the motion that we passed last time on June 3rd, the mayor voting to break a tie. I fear that what we pass may well be destroying what works as we seek some version of perfection. As we continue to discuss minimum thresholds to pass motions or business, we actually may have created a situation which would hamstring city council from getting work done at all. We sought to keep the mayor above the fray of day-to-day politics by doing what we did at the last meeting, but may have created a situation where politics could more easily be played and exercised. We need to look no further than what's happening in Albany right now as a reason to reconsider our recommendation. 5 of the 6 city council members were present at the Albany City Council meeting last week. 3 out of 5 voted yes on the budget. It didn't pass because they didn't have the 4th. The mayor couldn't vote and be the 4th. And so they are now at a situation that before July 1st, they've got to scramble and do that. I'm not sure that this is what we want for Sweet Home. You know, when we were talking about it last week, it sounded good, or 2 weeks ago rather, but the mayor can't vote, preventing the majority, but only with only 3 votes. Since the mayor cannot vote except to break a tie, the 4th vote in favor could not be cast. This demonstrates that a supermajority is required to pass anything in Albany. I don't think we want Sweet Home. Since the mayor can't vote and you need 4 votes to pass, you essentially require a 2/3 or greater margin to pass anything. I voted on the prevailing side of the yay votes, and I am in opposition to anything that requires 4 votes where it stands right now, unless we reconsider. So if it is appropriate at this time, it might not be appropriate because under Robert's rules, it is only appropriate if no other business is pending, and currently we are discussing Section 18. But if it is appropriate, I make a motion that we reconsider what we passed last time on the mayor only voting to break a tie. And it would require a second for reconsideration.
I'll second that because I didn't like that one anyway.
I thought you might. Thank you. But anyway, so I've presented my discussion. You know, I've said my piece, so I turn it back over to the chair for further discussion.
I don't have any other discussion on that. What do you think, Cecily? I mean, Blair's not here, but
I mean, I think you bring up a valid point. You want to assume we're going to have all 7 members all the time, but if we're in a situation where we don't, then yes, we could end up not being able to pass business.
And it makes it so somebody, all they have to do is be absent, and it creates that scenario no matter what it is that is the subject matter. And I don't like that. What it does, we were thinking we were preventing politics from taking place and taking part. And I think that that we've done just the opposite in so doing.
I mean, if there's a motion and a second, I think.
Well, I believe under Robert's rules, you know, unless Angie's the only one that hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and I'd be interested to hear what she's got to say. But unfortunately, because we did pass it, it's going to take 3 out of 4 of us to undo what we did.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, if the mayor could vote, then the 4-person majority to pass anything.
Or certain things. I would be in favor of it for certain things, but not for everything.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Uh,
Because you were adamant about wanting 4 votes.
and I do agree. But I am flexible with the idea of it just being certain areas, whatever those might be. So I'm not stuck on it being across the board. But I'm certainly in favor of undoing the thing from last time.
So then I'd also need a motion and a second to revert that. And then I can do the roll call.
I make a motion that we rescind what we previously passed on not permitting the mayor to vote except to break a tie.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. So then if we want to go back to section 18 and have that discussion about what it should apply to.
Could you run down your list one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, hiring and firing of the council appointed positions, which are the manager, the municipal judge, and the city attorney. It could be for filling any council vacancies. Obviously, if we are outside the half term, which you guys approved last time, land use decisions, utility rate changes, changes to city code, censure and discipline or removal of other councilors, or approving an ordinance with an emergency clause, which essentially just means it takes effect right away instead of after 30 days.
And that would leave what types of business that wouldn't apply to?
So, for example, contract approvals, traffic changes. I'm trying to think what we have on the agenda right now. Yeah, I mean, basically standard day-to-day business. policy changes, approving collective bargaining agreements or changes to employee compensation, things like that.
Well, I think if we're going to be hiring or firing a city manager or anything that's highly credible, I think we should have a minimum of 4 votes.
Okay.
Policy, I mean, rate hikes, anything that happens to the city, the people, I think we should have a majority vote.
May I?
Yeah.
The list that I came up with when I was debating this with myself for the last 2 weeks, where I would support the supermajority, which was, either a supermajority of 4 or a majority of the majority plus 1, depending on how many people were there. I mean, it could take as many as 5 with a majority plus 1, or as few as 4 with 5 or with 6 people present. But anyway, the what areas that I came up with were selection of a city manager, increasing municipal customer rates, water, sewer, and like that, and removal or discipline of an elected official, if we were to get to a point where we agreed on what type of discipline or censuring the city council would have available to them.
Any other discussion?
Well, I like either one of those guys' ideas in that world. So yours seemed a little bit longer, but they covered, I think his ideas covered everything that you mentioned. I like your list, and to me, that works for me, and that would take care of a lot of the stuff that seems to really matter to me on this kind of deal.
Was there anything from the rest of the committee on that list that you don't feel 4 affirmative votes should be required?
Could you read that list
Yes,
again?
the
Sorry.
hiring and firing of the council appointed positions, which is manager, judge, and attorney. The filling of council vacancies if we're past the halfway point of the term and can't go down the list of the next highest vote getters. Any land use decisions, utility rate changes, and with that one, I would like clarification. Would it only be for increases or also for decreases? And do you want to set a threshold? For example, if it's under 3%, you can just approve it with a simple majority. If it's over 3%, I'm just throwing 3% out there. Any changes to the city code, the censure and discipline or removal of other counselors, or approval of ordinances with emergency clauses?
I think those are all relevant.
Yeah.
I do
agree.
too. I actually, I could live with all of those.
Okay.
But then, then we need refinement before we vote on it also, like what she said, establishing a threshold. Do we want to establish a threshold? I'm not sure that we do. If we're just going for the majority, 4, I don't know that we need to set a threshold.
Yeah, the majority will go by
Right.
staff's recommendation
Right.
anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I say, the whole idea here is we're trying to streamline, try to improve, but we don't want to hamstring either.
Josh, so, Mr. Jarvis, first name again, I'm sorry.
Gary.
Gary. On that, you mentioned something about like 50% plus 1. And I recognize there might be times that I don't know when this would happen when the council's short a seat. So you're down to 6. What's the realistic opportunity for that to be down to 4? Must a whole pile of people resign at one time. Is 50% plus 1 realistic across all spectrums of that possibility?
That was just an idea that I was, like I said, that I was batting around with myself.
Right.
That I am good with the 4.
Yeah.
Uh,
But if you have,
I
which
think
is
that
fine.
probably the only one that I would like to see a true supermajority of 5 would be when it comes to discipline or removal. I mean, that is, for me, things that they are elected by the people. And barring a recall, I think that the threshold to remove an elected officer should be higher. So for me, now that you've asked that, I think that the minimum, that is 4 on all those other things, but discipline or removal of an elected officer, I believe should be 5.
Well, I will move that we change section 18 to be a minimum of 4 for the items that Cecily mentioned. But I think there's still language with that remaining, but where otherwise mentioned in the charter, we could address your concern. But anyway, minimum 4 for the items that Cecily mentioned.
I'll second that.
Further discussion.
We need to have further discussion, right?
Then I could support that what has been just moved and seconded, but I would like to see the removal or discipline of an elected officer taken out of this particular motion, and then wait until we get to those discipline areas that we have not really discussed and passed yet, and deal with that as a separate issue.
And I would say that's not needed because I think if you leave the except as provided elsewhere, otherwise in this charter, where you could cover it that way.
Except that we could end up then with someone claiming a conflict. Here it says this, here it says that. If we list it specifically in the charter of requiring 4 for that, then 4 is the number. And even if we address it elsewhere, when we're addressing it, that would be the areas that are silent. And that's why I want to make that silent. My understanding of language and the language that I've dealt with is that you've got language that is inclusive language, and you've got language that is not inclusive. And if we make it inclusive, then it is inclusive, and we can't change it anywhere else.
Why? I guess I don't understand why the except as clause doesn't apply.
Because we did not accept it yet. If you list it in that item as this is one of the things that requires 4 votes, then no matter what you put elsewhere,
I
this
see.
is one of the things that requires 4 votes.
I see what you're saying.
And that's it, because it becomes inclusive then, and we want it to be exclusive if we're going to pass it.
I think the burden of removing a fellow counselor deserves that. So I will remove that. I will modify it and remove that.
And I would accept that as a friendly amendment. I was going to make an amendment to that, but I think that's appropriate as a friendly amendment.
Any more discussion before we vote? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Did we want to take up that portion now, discuss the potential supermajority?
Where on the discussion about discipline and or removal, don't we need an entirely new section for that?
Yes, so do you mind, we kind of have that conversation together and then we can decide procedurally what we want to do?
I'm
Okay.
good with that.
So again, looking at how other cities handle it, it is very uncommon for the charter to contain discipline specifically related to, for example, absences, which I know was a big question in the previous meeting. We did find 3 examples. So Junction City, for example, if you miss 3 in a row, your seat is automatically declared vacant by council action. In Prineville, if you miss all meetings within a 60-day period or 50% of meetings in a calendar year, it's declared vacant. And in Newport, it's just all the meetings within a 60-day period. But again, handling discipline is much more commonly done in council rules. So it's really just a question of, does the committee want to recommend superseding that process and putting it in the charter, or allowing what's more common in Oregon to continue here?
So these are the rules right here.
Mhm. Yes, so I've provided a copy of the rules for your reference as
And
well.
I think it was section 20 that talks about some of that, right?
Yeah.
Violations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I guess this is kind of one of the things I mentioned last time, if I may, Josh, is that counselors don't, I mean, they're saying they agree to this, but they don't really sign anything saying they've read this and agreed to it, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's nothing formal to state, yes, I'm going to abide by the rules, and if I don't, I know I'm subject to XYZ. And there are some charters out there that do include a section where council is required to adopt rules and follow them. So you could at least reference the rules in the charter if you didn't want to go all the way to prescribing that in the charter. So really that's up to the committee how much teeth you want to give it.
And I like that, I think, without getting the charter too weighted down with specifics about what violations would be. Because there are ethics things in here and violations and the removal of option stuff mentioned in here. And I'd be in favor of something that's kind of on a broader side on the charter that would point to that, that the council deal with it somehow in this world.
The only tricky thing with the way that our rules are written right now with that is basically absent total interference in administration. We don't have a legal way to remove a counselor absent a recall vote. And the council can't actually call for that. So we're in kind of a weird pickle where people would have to be so upset at the counselor's actions that a local petition would have to go out.
Yeah, that's the only way we have to
Mhm.
to remove somebody.
So
Or
what's
hold them
this, so what's this 20 option 3, section 3 about removal from office?
So it states complying with the recall provisions of ORS 249.865. That is the state law that governs the recall process. And so the way these are written, we have to follow that process.
All right.
So again, we can't do an automatic removal for anything except interference in administration. And even that is a little bit sticky. But it has been done in other cities.
So this is where with the charter, we need to beef up the rules.
If you wanted to call out specific things that could result in removal, then yes, you would want to do that in the charter. Because LOC advises that if you don't, you may not be able to recall someone.
Open for discussion.
But I'm still in favor of something to do with the attendance business. I noticed I looked that up as a ballot measure 113 that did this with in 2022 for the state legislators if they were absent 10 or more times, and they could not run again. They could finish their term, but they couldn't run again. And I'd be in favor of something similar to that piece at least. I still have concerns about some of the ethics stuff. Just being I don't know how hard it'd be to put some teeth into that world. But attendance is a big one for me, and it shows if you're not going to be here half a time or more or whatever, why are you here? And I would agree it needs to be. I know I'm not a legislator. I don't think it matters what your reasons are, but I'm in favor of excused reasons or unexcused. I'm sorry, absences, not just willy nilly. Like one of them was 3 in a row. Was that any reason? That's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
And like on the school board, though, if you were gone 3 in a row unexcused, you were done. Everything could be removed.
Right.
It could be declared vacant, but that never happened.
Right.
And 5 in a row for any reason. I think it was on the school board.
I mean, 3 consecutive is a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Yeah, and the way the charter is written right now is if you're still in Sweet Home for the month and a half, we can't remove you for it. But you don't have to show up to work essentially. So
I'd like to see us at least hamstring their option to rerun for council if they're gone a lot at a minimum. If they're on, on the calendar, I think the one option suggested in that spreadsheet chart you pointed out, someone suggested 10 unexcused.
well, and I would like, if you're going to go down that route, I would like the committee to discuss how you want those classified. So for example, when I do attendance reports, I count every session as an individual meeting. So sometimes we'll have an executive session, a work session, and a regular session all in a row. And sometimes people can't make it to one, but to the 2 others, I count that as 1 absence out of 3 meetings. So we would just, if you're going to put it in the charter, let's be very clear how that is calculated, whether it's meeting number, percentage. For example, in January, I think we ended up having like 6 or 8 separate sessions just because we were getting the new counselors onboarded, even though we only met on 4 days.
I'm thinking regular council meetings that happen as a general rule twice a month.
Okay, so not to apply to
no,
work sessions or executive sessions.
Not work sessions or count.
Yeah, you could
exec sessions.
specify it as such. But if we were going to do something like this, and like what you're referring to there, Mike, would it be appropriate to put that back in the section where we were talking about eligibility to run for office? You know, where you have to live in Sweet Home, you know,
Mhm.
by the, whatever the date was,
Yeah,
et cetera, et cetera. And for a member running for reelection to a
Mhm.
concurrent term may not have X number of unexcused absences
In any one
per,
calendar year. yeah.
per calendar year,
Mhm.
while in office.
Mhm.
I-
Or for the previous 365 days or however.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, not just that 365 days, but to me, any one calendar year while they're in office to qualify.
Sure, but that's my question is,
Yeah.
do we want to, I mean, that addresses your concern, you know, and that way they finish out their term. We don't go through the legal expense, and there would be a legal expense if someone wanted to fight their removal. You know, and do we want to put that saddle on the expenses of Sweet Home? But this way, it addresses your concern where if somebody wishes to run for a subsequent term, then they probably best try to attend meetings.
Right. I like something, right. I don't want it to be something where they kind of do this last 365 days. They do a great job because they know what the
Right,
rules
right.
are. So any calendar year, to me, if they're absent 10 or
That's what I
more
said.
times,
You could phrase it as each of the years of their
yeah.
term, their current term.
Where we put this in here, I don't know if it's where he's saying or if there's another spot that makes more sense. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it would probably be in elections or
Yeah, I do think the
eligibility for
eligibility
elections.
would
yeah.
probably be most appropriate.
Yeah. That's an earlier section we already covered.
Mhm. But that's okay. I agendized the whole charter. So we can talk about whatever you guys want tonight.
Well, if I may, I will move that we modify that section to say if a counselor is absent 10 or more times in any calendar year during their term, unexcused absences during their term, that they cannot run for reelection.
Regular
Regular council meetings.
There's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
In a second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Very good.
As long as we're going back, there's something else that I wanted to address also. And then once again, it falls under elections also. And there's also one under quorum. And that is, if I may, I suggested chapter 3. No, that's a different one. Chapter 2, section 3. Or it could be under chapter 2, section 3. Too many sheets of paper here. Chapter 2, section 3 is mayor and council. And first of all, there's a question. And that is what we've already passed, or what the people of Sweet Home already passed, an elected mayor. That is not reflected in your markup.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
I should do that
Okay,
because it's been submitted to the state, but yes, I forgot to
Okay.
put it in the
And
book.
so I'm not sure if this is appropriate there or if it is more appropriate under chapter 3 elections. But what I am going to propose, and then I'm open to, whatever, what I would like to propose is that when a city councilor who is in midterm runs for mayor and gets elected, my proposed language would be if the mayor-elect is in midterm city council, is a midterm city council member, the fourth place city council candidate in that election shall be considered elected to this instant vacancy and serve the remaining 2 years of the seat vacated. That way we take care of that election instantly. We don't have to go through the regular vacancy process.
Can you say the portion elected to this vacancy after?
Yes, if the mayor-elect is a midterm city council member, the fourth place city council candidate shall be considered elected to this instant vacancy and serve the remaining 2 years of the seat vacated. And I'm putting that in the form of a motion.
And did you have a preference for which section?
No, I'm not, that's why I said, I'm not sure whether that should be in chapter 3 elections or if it should be under chapter 2, section 3, so council and mayor.
I'm thinking chapter 2, section 3 is
Yeah.
most
Okay,
appropriate.
that's where I
Under
proposed it in the
okay.
first
Yeah.
place.
I'll second.
Any discussion? No discussion.
Sounds good.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Right?
And then the other thing that I had is chapter 3, section 12. And that is in keeping with the vacancies and the excuses and things that we've already just discussed. There may be instances where city council member may need to request an excused absence or absences over an extended period of time. This could be due to health reasons for the person or family, or death in the family, health of self or family member, National Guard activation, or other cause. We have no provision for such temporary absence. I'd like to see us entertain an idea whereby when there is going to be a known temporary absence for a period of time, that we create a pro tem city council member being appointed to fill that slot until the city council member who has requested an extended absence is able to return. It's already hard to serve, as a shift worker, or if one holds a job where they're frequently called out of town. But something like this could serve both the individual city council member as well as the city itself, because it gives a full body to attend to the business at hand during an extended absence.
And you're recommending that that's appointed by city council or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Things that it's pro tem temporary, that it's emergent in nature. And so we have people that we go to and select to fill that vacancy.
And would you want 4 affirmative votes for that?
Yes.
And how many days are you suggesting before what's considered?
It's up to us.
Right. You didn't provide one, right?
Pardon me?
You didn't provide one, right? Okay.
No, I did not. This was just something that I was thinking about. And as I was pouring over everything else we discussed at the last meeting.
I will add that if something like this was to be put in place, it'd have to be a lengthy absence, because we would have to go through an interview process. We'd have to find candidates. That would take time, and it could take a month or 2 for us to find a candidate and vote.
And what I was thinking of is 60 days or longer, where somebody has requested it in advance, knowing that they're going to need that kind of time.
Up for discussion.
And that was really just discussion I threw out. I did not
I was
place
saying
that
not a motion, right?
in the form of a motion, no.
Thank you.
I just wanted to see what other people thought about it.
I like the concept, but based on what Josh just said, I'm thinking much longer than 60 days before.
He said 60 days or longer.
Yeah.
So,
I'm thinking minimum of 6 months or something. I don't know. If you're going to it takes time to find the person to fill the seat temporarily. And that's quite a process probably. And you meet twice a month, but
Yeah, my previous municipality is going through this right now, and it took them 2 months to find someone to fill a 2-month temporary vacancy. So, because of the process.
Maybe if we were to do something like that too, is we could, create a pool of people who are willing to serve such for such a term, and and that way they are already available at hand
Yeah.
if something like this comes up. Yeah, I'm not trying to come up with
Substitute pool, so
reinvent the wheel or come up with something too complicated. I'm just saying that this might be a tool that is useful for the city council.
A pre-vetted pool.
substitute pool.
PvP.
And would we just hold that open all the time, or how would that, I'm just trying to think from.
That was what
since
my
staff is
suggestion
gonna
was.
have to
just in case,
administer
yeah.
the process.
I don't know, it may be a little bit too much for us to consider right now, but I just like the idea out there, even if we just pass something generally to go to city council and let city council, because they're the ones that have to deal with the meat of this as it occurs, to hammer it out. But I would like us to make some kind of a general proposal for their consideration once our committee is done.
I did see there were some cities that when they're dealing with their vacancies, their charters stated that council would be required by charter to pass a resolution or an ordinance outlining the process to fill that vacancy. I don't know if you have any interest in doing that. Basically compelling rulemaking.
Rules are always a good idea.
And then just to clarify, would you want the appointees to have to follow the same requirements as if they had run in a standard
Yes.
term? So
Yeah.
resident
Yes,
for a
yes,
year and.
Yes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to make a motion that is very general in nature. And my motion would be that city council, upon reviewing this committee's work, consider creating a city council member pro tem and a pool of said eligible, based on eligibility, a pool, let me start over again. I make a motion that city council consider, when they consider our recommendations, that we offer a recommendation that they consider a mechanism by which they can establish a pool of ready pro tem city council members in the event there is an approved extended absence of a city council member for the purpose of streamlining and keeping operated business going.
Can I offer a staff perspective on that?
Absolutely.
So my only concern with that is once the pool is established, the onus will be on staff to vet the entire pool every time there's a vacancy before bringing those names forward. So it does add administrative burden to maintain a pool versus having people self-select once we release the requirements.
I withdraw my motion and I make the following motion. That when city council considers our recommendations, once we submit our recommendations to them, that they consider coming up with a mechanism whereby they can establish a method of selecting pro tem city council members to fill long-term vacancies that are requested in advance by current city council members.
Is there a second?
I guess to allow for further discussion, I'll second it. I'm a little confused about the motion, but
The motion is giving it the advisory to the council to come up with a mechanism to replace an excused absent counselor. We're not giving the rule. We're giving it to the council to come up with one.
So Vice Chair Jarvis, you're not suggesting the addition of language
No, I am not.
specifically?
No, I'm not.
But you would
No
like it-
specific language at this
Okay.
point, because I have not, it would take a lot of time to refine it, to suggest it. And we've got so many other things that we're dealing with. I just like having the idea out there for them to consider.
Would this go in the charter under vacancies?
I would think it would need to, yeah.
So is there a second?
Yeah.
I second it.
Oh, he did,
Just
okay.
allow for discussion.
Okay.
But so the council would then, under discussion, then determine what would be considered a long-term absence, let them defer, make them make all those decisions.
The council would also decide how to go about filling
Right.
the absences and who to choose to fill the absences.
I can support that.
Do you have an opinion about that, Josh? Since you were on the council.
I don't. It's one of those things that isn't covered. Can it happen? Of course it can happen. So there's just another step in the process that it gives us foundation.
And consistency.
Yeah.
We did have an example in the school board where a board member was called up and the reserves and was gone for quite a while. And he did make some efforts to phone in when he could, but that would certainly be an example of a good long-term absence.
Definitely. Definitely. So I think it's good.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're gonna get back on. Are you got any other past notes?
Let's come up to current.
Okay. All right.
So we left off on 19, correct?
Yeah, we touched on 20, I believe.
For the manager.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we had previously talked about the bond that's required. Did we recall what the motion was on that one? So we struck section 7, bonds of officers, employees, and contractors. Did we want to maintain the bond for the city manager in section 20?
I thought that we deleted all that language.
I'm trying to remember if that
Yeah, I
also
think we
applied to section.
deleted
Okay.
all of that.
Okay.
We can go in there and look, but I believe that we deleted all that.
Okay.
I think, Josh, if I may, I kind of wondered about, I think I asked a question about we're in a situation now where Jason is filling 2 roles. And I guess the charter doesn't talk about this as an absence of what happens if the police chief, someone files a complaint against the police chief right now.
So basically, when we were going through his contract, we had a contracted lawyer that we worked with, and an employment lawyer. And I asked the same thing, and he essentially said that anything that would be a concern to his role as chief of police would equally be a concern to his role as city manager. So it would ultimately fall under city council's purview to review.
Okay.
And then I had actually going back to section 19. So, and it's a little awkward because I'm going to be talking about myself, but right now, the mayor, the manager, our finance director, the pro tem, they can sign things, sign checks. I'm not authorized to sign checks as a deputy. And so, for example, right now, Jason is on vacation. So if Josh was also on vacation, we couldn't disperse checks this week because we don't have enough people in town with signatory authority. So I just wanted to get your opinion on either allowing the manager to select a designee or specifically calling out a designee.
I believe, if I may, I believe that you're the second in line as far as executive office. And based on all of my experience that, everything that I've ever dealt with, absolutely, it should be you, in my opinion. And so I would make a motion to that effect that the deputy city manager also be included in that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
So discussion wise then, currently it's what?
So right now it's the mayor, the president pro tem, the city manager, and our finance director who is contracted. So he is not on site. So he's never able to sign.
So any 2 of the 3 or 4?
Any 2 of the 4.
Doesn't matter if it's the one counselor, one staff member.
Correct. But I'll say too, for optics, I prefer when there's a staff member and a counselor versus
Right.
2 counselors or 2 staffers. And right now that's just not possible. if
Right, yeah, because
Jason's not available.
and I agree. I don't know that we want to put it in the language. I think for preference, just like what we used to deal with also, is it required 2 signatures? But we would have some officers that would, just for the sake of expedience, would want to sign a check that was written to them. And,
Right.
and the IRS does not like that. The Department of Labor did not like that. And I would come down on them for so doing. So, yeah, I agree that I think that, splitting the house, some part of the, staff as well as city council when possible. But I don't know that we want to put that in the motion. I think that we.
I was just curious. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Just checking my notes on this section.
I don't see anything else on the spreadsheet
Yeah, I don't
matrix.
either. I think we've addressed everything.
So we're good on section 20.
I am. I am.
Oh, I did have one question on section 20, actually. So section 20, subsection E, manager pro tem. I just wanted to get the committee's opinion on if you felt the 6-month limit for an interim city manager is appropriate. So currently, the practice is a little bit odd. You can't be the pro tem for more than 6 months. And so I know in the past, sometimes we've appointed a different pro tem, but then technically the way the charter is written, you could turn around the next day and reappoint the first pro tem. So I didn't know if there was any desire to clean that up at all or to extend the term just because city manager recruitments tend to take 9 to 12 months or if it's good as is.
Oh, it already says that you can't have consecutively
Correct.
appointed.
Yes. So
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
You
right now
appoint
we're
somebody
breaking
for
it.
one day
Yes.
and then they step away and then the other one
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever done it quite that quickly, but yes,
So
technically,
you're
but
saying now it's taking more like 9 to 12 months to do.
typically.
Well, I'd move we extend that to 12 months.
You made a motion
Yes.
to change
The pro tem
six
timeframe to from 6
months to 12 months?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Would it make sense for us to extend it out to 18 months since it takes 9 to 12 to find a candidate?
You could do that, or you could state either 12 or 16, but require a renewal through council action every 6 up to a certain limit.
I would offer, I'm thinking of offering an amendment, but an amendment really is never proper according to Robert's rules if it defeats the intent of the first.
Well, I'm in favor of something what Angie's saying and would change my motion to be continue with the 6 months with up to 3 renewals.
So you should withdraw your first.
I'll withdraw
motion
if
and
you
then
wanna be
make a
technical.
new motion.
New one. Withdrawn, first one, withdrawn. New motion, extend, allow up to 6 months on the pro tem with up to 3 renewals. 2 renewals, I guess, for a total of
Okay.
18 months.
That's what I'm gonna have.
I second that.
Any discussion?
Good catch.
And that would be through council action, correct?
With 4 votes.
With 4 votes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
That was a good catch.
just because it's come up so
Yeah.
frequently.
The last two, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, where were you on that one, Josh?
I wasn't on the council.
Okay, so any comments on section 21, municipal judge?
Section 21 is pretty clear.
Yeah, I found when we went through this, in advance of our meetings, I've been through this several times, and I did not find anything in there that I thought worthy of addressing.
In section 22,
It's good to me.
Yeah, I found nothing wrong in that either.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, section 23. I don't have any notes for that one.
Yeah, I had no notes on that either.
Okay, section 24,
The big one.
everybody's favorite. Staff has opinions.
We do violate that all the time, because it is not distinctly read. I mean, if I try keeping up with it, and without having read something first, I cannot keep up with it. And I understand that we read it. I mean, it says fully and distinctly, and the purpose of that is so that people can understand what it is that is being considered. But at the same time, how many times have I heard the term buckle up? Because it does take a long time to go through. And so I have a question, but unfortunately Blair isn't here to answer this question. Maybe Cecily, you'll be able to answer this, and Josh also, but is there a way that we can meet the spirit as well as the intent of this
Mhm.
by having the title read and then have our city attorney write has a term that has been used by two of my cohorts down on the right end of the table, one of whom isn't here today, simple language that would create a summary that highlights what the bill is.
So right now, almost all the items that go to council for action have a request for council action attached, which is typically less than a page and a half long, and it summarizes background, any relevant regulations, recommendations from staff, fiscal impact. So in my opinion, the packets already contain that.
So could we substitute that rather than the ordinance, the summary being read clearly and distinctly, and also, in keeping with, city council actually doing the entirety of their job, and councilors being required, strongly encouraged, whatever, to read the darn thing in advance so that they understand it as well, inside and out, and so that if there are questions, like, I read this little clause in there in subsection 14 of E3 that I have no idea what that means. Can you please elaborate on that type of a situation? But I think that we can cover the intent of this if we do specify fully and distinctly explained through summary.
Well, and to be honest, I think that this section is a relic of a time when literacy rates were much worse and a lot more people came to meetings. In looking statewide, we are extraordinarily unusual in how we handle ordinances. It is far and above what most other places do. So I think in this day and age, when we do have digital packets available, anyone can come here and request hard copies. You can have it read to you by AI. Staff's opinion is that it's really not, we don't see the point in preserving what's in the charter right now, but that's staff opinion.
If it's not a requirement of law,
No,
I presume that it was.
no,
Because
not
like
at
when
all.
I dealt with constitutional issues and like that, it was dictated by law that it
No,
had to be.
so for
that
example,
had to be fully and distinctly read. And so what I'd like to see us do then is to take that, and every ordinance shall have a summary, fully and distinctly read, period.
but
And
again, what will constitute a summary? So,
a summary setting out the basic intent of the new ordinance that is being passed, or that is being offered up to be passed.
and so typically the title states that intent very shortly. So for example, we have one coming up and it states, ordinance number whatever, amending Sweet Home Municipal Code section, blah, 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 blah. So right now, when we do the by title only, that is stating the very high level intent. But I'm getting the
What
feeling
I'm
that that's
talking
not-
about is more of the practical that would be understood by people in attendance to the meeting, or
Mhm.
reading an account of it in the newspaper,
Yeah,
or watching the meetings after it takes place.
yeah.
That's what I'm aiming
Yeah.
for.
Well, and
Just where it explains what the
Yeah.
purpose, why we are even here, and why we are addressing this new ordinance.
Yeah. And I totally understand that. I just think, again, from staff perspective, as we make all those materials available. So we're trying to get away from spending more time in the meetings reading what is literally published elsewhere and can be accessed by anybody at any time.
Well, that's
So-
why I put the burden on our city attorney. And we told Blair that we weren't going to be coming to him in his absence.
Do you want me to go over what some other cities do?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so in the League of Oregon Cities model charter, they recommend only 2 readings by title only. They can be adopted by only a unanimous vote of those present in a single meeting if the text of the ordinance is published at least a week in advance and available to the public. And then if there are any amendments made before it's approved, those do have to be read in full. So that's the model. Halsey, also only 2 readings. It can be adopted by unanimous vote in a single meeting if it's read in full once and by title once. Lebanon, only 1 meeting to approve, and it can be read by title only if no one requests it read in full and copies are available, which we always have them. Brownsville, 2 meetings. Again, can be by title only for both if no one requests it read and copies are available a week in advance or more. And then Albany also allows approval in 1 meeting and 2 readings, but they can both be by title only if not requested to be read in full.
What is the question of the second reading if it's going to be done at the same time? That seems like that.
So typically those ones, their charters state that it's to be read at 2 distinct meetings, but if there's a vote to read it the first time that's unanimous, then it can go immediately to the second vote for approval.
Okay, what I would like to do is I would like to see what other people think about it, because like I say, my only issue with it was the fact that the language has existed and we fulfilled the letter of the rule, but not the spirit of the rule. So what Josh?
So this is referring to ordinances, right? So I correlated this kind of like to board policies. I did that for a long time. And that one, we could pass something on the reading number one, if it was unanimous. And then, but there was never more than 1 reading in a meeting. So then the second meeting, you could pass it if just with majority. And then sometimes they weren't ready, they weren't caring, so they had to go to a 3rd reading and it would have to be dealt with. And so I kind of like the idea of a much easier version of this where it's just first reading, if it's unanimous, just to do the title and be good. People, like you said, they should be able to read this stuff online. I'm assuming most of it's pretty much written in layman's terms online, right?
The requests for council
yeah,
action, those
yeah.
are very simplified. Yes.
We didn't have to read the entire policy to do that. So
No, I agree with what you're saying, Mike. Like the passing it with unanimous vote, first reading.
So by title only?
by
If
title,
unanimous, okay.
If everything's there for the public, if they would like to read it.
And did we want to put any time requirements as to how long it needs to be published before the vote? Because again, there were a couple cities that,
How often is this stuff published now? council?
It depends. So like, for example, we do have ordinances that are coming up a week from today, but we do not have the text of those ordinances finalized.
Welcome, Jeff. Did you enjoy your nap?
I did until I woke up in a panic.
I'm sorry.
So
I do-
The council, due to her awesomeness, is we get our packets a week ahead of time
I
now,
try.
and there's plenty of time for us to go through it.
But that's not,
We used to get like 2 days prior. We used to get
Yeah.
packets.
Yeah. So by state law, it's 48 hours.
that's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Any other discussion? So, we were talking about the passing of, and reading of passage of ordinances.
before council.
And we do 3 readings now?
Yes. So right now, the way that it works here is we do the first reading in full. Then council can vote to move it to a second reading. If that vote is unanimous, we can do the second reading by title only right away at that same meeting. And then they move to conduct the third and final reading at the next meeting. If it's not unanimous, then yes, it gets split between 3 meetings. So it can take 6 weeks to approve one ordinance right now, the way that we have it structured.
And very long.
Very long.
So
So could we make a motion to the effect of eliminating the every ordinance shall be fully and distinctly read? And then just move that will be read in title only if unanimous, may be read in title only at the same meeting and voted on. If not unanimous, then the second reading would be at a subsequent meeting. And that is my motion.
I will second that.
Any other discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Yay, you just made this guy really happy.
Still happy.
Although it's,
So I have been in here when we redid planning code and we were only able to get 4 counselors. So we were in here for 8.5 hours because we had to read it in full. And anytime that somebody needed to take a potty break, we didn't have a quorum. So we had to stop and it was a nightmare. And that planning code was due to state law changing. So we had to get it done, and getting 4 people midweek to hear it being read in full for over 8 hours was a nightmare. So thank you.
and we have that coming up, right?
We do.
Unfortunately.
Sorry, I was on that planning commission for,
You were in there.
yeah, that was
That was
2
the
years
frustrating
just for
part.
that
Is
code.
we had multiple workshops to
Yeah.
get to the ordinance,
Yeah.
and we had all heard it a billion times, and then we had to go beginning to end with a quorum. It was difficult.
Well, for what it's worth, Adam, you are to be applauded for holding your tongue until after we got done dealing with it. I'm sure that must have been difficult.
Okay. So section 25.
So staff is requesting that you discuss potentially removing the requirement to post for 10 days after passage in 3 or more places. Just because no one goes to the library or to our reader board to read the ordinances. And there are also times when, so for example, by ordinance, we approved our updated transportation system plan this year. Well, the packet was not actually completely finalized. We had final draft when we went to council, but not the absolute final. So what would be posted with the ordinance, it would essentially have been incomplete. So we would have been posting an incomplete ordinance for those 10 days because it took about 2 weeks to get the totally final plan.
So staff is recommending to remove the 10 days.
And again, just because everything is available online, I typically scan everything that's signed the night of, upload the next day. So, again, it's just to remove some physical labor to the process when everything's readily available. And we're happy to print things for folks if they want them.
We will need a motion.
Just to clarify,
Mhm.
they will still be posted online.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. And those stay up
Forever.
forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are there currently notifications or some kind of single page thing at the library that says for updated information? Check the website
There's
or anything. like
There's
that?
not, no, I mean, typically you see what's on the agenda and then you go to the ordinance page and it's there. So,
We don't have on our website at all. We don't have anything that says like recently updated or kind of current issues or anything like that as far as a page where it would show things that were recently adopted in the last.
well, so we do have two separate web pages, one for ordinances and one for resolutions, and they default by date, but you can search for subjects, you can search for numbers.
But there's not like a tab on the main Sweet Home, City of Sweet Home website that says, recently updated.
No, other than the agenda packets themselves.
Okay.
So you're just looking to strike that last sentence? So moved.
A second? I'll second. Any discussion?
I would like to, I recognizing that once again, this is a relic from pre-electronic notification media and everything else times. But is there a way that we could request, like what Jeff was just asking about, could we substitute without a great deal of work on the part of staff that there is a tab or a link on the webpage that is, for ordinances passed within the last 6 months or the last year or something like that, because that way there is, for people that only pay attention every now and then, it eliminates the secret meeting, look what they snuck by us type thing. If it were to, if we were to have a place where people could easily go see changes
So when you're
without
saying
having to
changes,
sort through.
what kind of, so
Well,
Adam, can you actually pull up like the ordinance page? Second row. Oh yeah, sorry. You have to do it. Foxy.
Yeah.
Second row. Yep. Mhm. Oh, that's fine. So you'll see we have a search box where you can put your subject with an adopted year. For example, if you type in 2025, it's going to show you everything that's been approved this year and filter it out for you.
So there's you can't put a sort function on the columns?
Oh, I wish.
Our current website won't allow that. However, we are getting a new website built and it's still unclear how much functionality that one will have, but it will be better than this.
Okay, so with the motion and the second, then I will withdraw any objections I have to it at this time, because it's something that could be addressed in the future if somebody wanted it, with if there are improvements to the website where something like that could be easily identified. So that's all the discussion I have.
Can you add any language to that search function about, if you want to see the most recent ones, type in 2025 or type in the year, just some verbiage?
Oh, like, I don't know. I would have to check with our vendor.
Just curious. Help with that.
I'm not very computer savvy and I have used it before.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Any other discussion? Roll call.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed?
It would be fun to see something in the future unrelated to this, but with the website, kind of the new news
Yeah, we've talked about
tab or something like that.
trying to come up with some kind of blurb that goes out with just very high level. This is what they talked about at council. This is what passed.
Yeah,
So, and the new
just-
era does that to an extent, but
Well,
on our
also
website
too,
would be
like
nice.
with our new text system that we were gonna have, we can be doing something like that. too.
yes.
A notification would go out and
Yeah.
say, this was just passed.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
the people that have signed up.
Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to chapter
26.
8.
Yeah, Josh, I'm assuming when the final one gets done, we won't ever have things like chapter 8 at the very bottom of a page. And then,
Oh, yes. I'm not messing with any of the
Oh,
formatting yet in case we add sections or take sections away. But yes, I'll reformat all of that once we're ready to look at the whole thing.
I noticed in the matrix, there's nothing, no comments from
Mhm.
anybody in the rest of this charter.
Does anybody have anything with section 26?
No,
Section 27?
no.
I have opinions on 26, but they aren't in regard to the charter and current discussion. So I will keep them out of this meeting.
I don't have anything with 27. Any other question? Anything? Nothing? Okay.
No.
So 28.
The only thing I had in 28 is I know that through planning commission, we were trying to remove verbiage of remonstrance throughout all the code and things like that. That word was being removed as per suggestion of staff.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want to look for an alternative.
Yeah, I don't know what that word means.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
Henry Wolfius's favorite word.
Well, okay, then I can,
What does it mean?
I think it's something like
Ask it.
forfeiture or something
AI.
like that.
well, my understanding of this is if council decides that they want to do these improvements, but 2/3 of the property owners affected within that right of way say they don't want it, then they can counteract what council has ordered to be done in terms of public improvement. So. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly go back with our planning staff and find out which word they used and just swap that out. And
Yeah, I know that it came up frequently
Okay.
in the code rewrite. And there
It-
was discussion for it, and I can't
Okay.
remember right off the top of my head.
Okay. If I could just get consensus on that, I don't think I need a motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Section 29.
Really quickly, I just Googled the remonstrance meaning, and it's the act of strongly protesting or objecting to something, often with reasoned arguments.
Nice lay word, nice layperson word, not.
Yeah.
So everybody's good with 29?
Yes.
Yes,
Section 30.
Early on in the discussion, we talked about referring to the current rewrite charter with a date. Do we want to do that in here as
So-
well?
I believe that's going to be added to the very top of the charter. It's the
Okay.
first section with the date.
I think 30 is pretty good. Section 31 is state law.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's state law, so
Yep.
there's nothing
And
we're gonna
then
monkey with
section
there.
32,
That's pretty standard.
Yep.
That's boilerplate.
Right.
and section 33.
Also pretty boilerplate.
That's just boilerplate language.
Mhm.
Yep.
So is there any other discussion?
I had one other thing, and that was in my notes that I submitted originally. My observation that I would like to see something in the charter that that establishes or otherwise upholds the rights of regular citizens, like the right to be heard through oral petition or weigh in on council rules. Because that is absent right now, and council rules means that they are subject to be reviewed and changed by council every couple of years, more frequently if necessary. Is that we've got like what I had addressed at a previous city council meeting, where in one area it said that citizens generally would have the right to speak to an issue for 3 minutes, but then elsewhere in the rules it says citizens may only speak for 2 minutes. And if a citizen really has something that they wish to present to city council, that they have a petition where they really want to get city council's attention on something, 2 minutes is really hard. I mean, I have the benefit of being part of this committee, and so I've had the ability to elaborate and try to make myself very clear on things that I'm passionate about. But 2 minutes at a meeting, it can't be done. You have to, I find that I've had to prepare and write it down and just really talk really, really fast in order to get in, and I still can't get it done in 2 minutes. And I think that I would like to see something in the charter, I'm not sure where it would be, that establishes the right for citizens to address city council. And right now it's absent completely. And so citizens are really at the mercy of whatever the current council and their rules established are, which means that instead of the being we the people, it's really becomes we the council and we dictate to you. And so I would like to see us consider advocating for and a new section that would establish the rights of citizens for petition and redress.
So are you saying like a petition like in advance?
No, a verbal petition, like what we call it when when the mayor says, "Is there anybody that wishes to petition the council?" You know, just to address council. I would like to see, that address with just a general but reasonable number that cannot be shaved away because we don't want to. I mean, because sometimes it does. To be completely honest, over the years, we have had some city council that it was clear that they really didn't care what the people of Sweet Home had to say. We were a nuisance in their proceeding for the day. And I know that that there's a certain amount of business that needs to be attended, but I think, like I say, I think that a minimum of 4 or 5 minutes is not too much to ask to put in as an absolute right for citizens to be able to speak at city council meetings at the beginning.
I
of
will say
meetings.
5 minutes is unusual.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
well, but the thing is, 2 minutes is too short. And like I say, clearly we had a rule of 3 minutes that somebody didn't like. Elsewhere in the rules, it became 2 minutes, and the 2 minutes now supersedes the 3 minutes that is even in the council rules.
Well, and I think the section you're referring to is the mayor does reserve the right to shorten the time if there's a high volume of people who are registered to speak. And that is,
But historically,
yeah.
they have set it at that, even if there's only one person that wants to speak. They have defaulted to that over time. Years ago, 2 or 3 mayors ago, it was always, well, 2 minutes, that's all you can do, and your 2 minutes is up, go sit down. I mean, we even had one mayor right in the middle of someone's speaking about an issue said, well, that ain't ever going to happen next, and like I say, those types of things for those of us that, that want to be involved, but don't want to be stifled, so to speak, when we have something legitimate that we'd like to say.
So just for clarification, you're talking about at the beginning of a council meeting when there's open for public comment.
During the time period where people have an opportunity to address city council with things that they would like city council to address, either not necessarily today, but in the future, just something that they're bringing up. I mean, like, for example, I have, at the next meeting, I am planning on coming with a bunch of photos, and I'm not sure how to deal with that, but on one of our trips, my wife and I came across a really small town with a great little water park that they got a grant for. Yeah, I mean, the town is only something like 685 people. But in order for me to address exactly what we found, I can't do that in 2 minutes because there's a lot of information that I gathered in that. And I would like it to be, when I present it, I want it to be public. I don't want it to be, oh, I'm going to talk to Cecily about this. And if Cecily likes this, then she's going to give it to Josh. And if Josh likes it, then maybe, they'll discuss it at a work session or something like that. So I would like to see something in our Bible, as it were, that gives rights to the citizens.
Still up for discussion. I know when I spoke, when I was very unhappy with the city of Albany, theirs was 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure when I went to city of Lebanon to let them know that I was unhappy with them, this is not a common theme here.
It does happen, though.
It does. It was 5 minutes. Not everybody uses it, but it at least gives somebody time to get their point across. That's all I'm saying.
Is it 2 minutes here?
No, it's three.
And sitting kind of where Josh has been, in all these, I know that some people come in and when they sit down, not only are they not prepared, they don't have the eloquence to quickly present their point, they're nervous. So that 2 minutes is extremely short. I would,
Again,
3
three
to
is our
5.
standard because I do
Yeah.
the timing. So
yeah,
yeah,
I
I don't
would
know that
say
I've seen two since
3 to
I've been
5,
here.
but I don't know how
Well,
you would do
for
that.
what
for
it's
language.
worth, if I may, I would like to make a motion that we establish language in the city charter that
For text.
that otherwise, upholds and establishes the right for regular citizens to address city council for a period of, for a normally not to exceed 5 minutes.
So a period of not more than 5.
During the public comment period.
During the public comment period.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? No discussion.
No, but so what would happen if we have I remember one school board meeting during the COVID times. It was horrendous, the public comment period, because they were just lined up. And a lot of them said the same thing. But it went on for over an hour. And now I do recognize that I think we just shortened your meetings by a little bit with this ordinance thing, but that's not every meeting, I'm assuming. So that doesn't help every time. Is there some regress for that? Or that really maybe that really isn't, it hasn't been an issue here.
Well, if the language goes in the way that it's proposed, there is no redress
Yeah.
because even though we have a provision in our rules allowing it to be shortened, the charter will supersede.
It did use the word normally. So if you do, that could be defined as, when there are a large number of people that wish to address something. I'm just talking about normal, regular, not public hearing. I'm not referring to public hearing because public hearing, of course, the public has a right to speak there. That is established. But what I'm talking about is like what Josh expressed too, at the normal beginning of the meeting where the public has a chance to come up and express ideas or complaints to city council that they normally be allowed up to 5 minutes.
So something up to 5 minutes with the discretion of the council based on the
Volume.
amount of business to be
Or the
heard.
volume of comment.
Yeah,
people
I
making
don't know what,
comments.
that
I
wording
feel
would
like
be.
it's nebulous, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Okay, but normally, let's face it, normally we don't have 40 people lined up to speak.
Oh, I see. what you're
That
saying.
is the rare exception, and if most people, I think, on city council could suffer that indignity, as it were, for the rare occasion that
It only
that
happened
would
once
occur.
for the 20 years on the school board, so I guess that wasn't terrible,
Yeah.
but
But so, yeah, I will stick with my original motion of up to 5 minutes, 5 minutes rather.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So are we done with so I guess we decided that there was nothing we can really do about the code of conduct area.
Again, unless you want to include that as a new charter section. And then you'd need to be very clear about what the violations are and how they are to be handled, or direct counsel to approve a resolution adopting that or something like that. So, but again, it's just not very common practice in charters to address
It's not,
conduct.
no.
Yeah, I would at least like to see something where counselors sign something they've read these things. I mean, this is not unusual for,
I mean, we can certainly include that administratively,
yeah.
know that it needs
But
to,
will
Be
you?
held accountable.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of an important deal. We do put our
Mhm.
trust in the people that we elect to city council. It would be nice to know that they're just as serious as we were when we voted for them.
And then I have just a couple more things that I wanted to ask the committee's opinion on. So I know the question came up of, I think this was 2 meetings ago, about, well, what if there are a bunch of vacancies? So for example, the League of Oregon Cities model charter states if the number of counselors is reduced to less than 4, remaining members by majority action may appoint additional members to get to 4.
If I may,
Mhm.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I had that actually in my notes for
Mhm.
today and I passed over it because we were dealing with something else. And that was under section 15, under quorum, a new subsection that in the event there being 3 city council seats vacant at the same time, the majority of the remaining city council members become a quorum for the purpose of filling vacancies. And I make that in the form of a motion.
So become a quorum only for
Filling vacancies,
filling the vacancies.
With 3 absent seats.
3 or more, yes.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No, as long as it's just limited to filling the seats and no other business.
That makes sense to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then the other item that I wanted to ask about, oh, I have 2 actually. So there are some cities where when there is a vacancy, they set a timeline by which it must be filled. So I don't know if the committee wants to consider inclusion of that language. So like Corvallis, for example, is 60 days or less. Just something to consider so that that seat isn't artificially held open for a long time.
Yeah, it's not right.
And again, this would only apply if it's in the second half of the term for the vacancy.
Any ideas?
Well, I think following Corvallis's model would seem proper to me, wherever it fits appropriately in the charter. I'd so move for that. 2 months, 60 days, 60 days.
Yeah.
I like it.
60 calendar days.
We need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the final one.
Would it be wrong to say R?
No.
Okay, perfect.
So there are some cities that give the mayor veto power in regards to ordinances. And that's not something that's addressed in our charter, so I just wanted to bring it up. For
Are those
discussion.
all non-voting mayors?
No, some of them are voting mayors.
I think Albany's one, right?
Um,
Or they were.
yeah, they're not anymore.
Okay.
But so like, for example, in Halsey and Sherwood, the mayor has so many days past the initial approval to file with the city recorder, the reasons for their veto. In Halsey, and it goes back to city council and it requires 5 out of 7 to reapprove. In Sherwood, a simple majority can reapprove. So those are just some examples of other places with veto power.
Right, but in Halsey, I would understand that because the mayor is not a voting member.
Right.
So,
Well, and
Right.
to be fair, I made this list when we were still having the mayor as a
Yeah.
tiebreaker.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want that except and unless
yeah.
we had that, because otherwise it gives a super vote to the mayor, which I don't think that we want to do
Yeah.
that.
If our mayor is voting, then they shouldn't be able to do that. My opinion.
Right.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed.
And that's all I had.
So we're going to have 2 public days where people could come in and get all of the changes, go over it, ask questions, give advice. Cecily's going to do that 1 week day and the 1 weekend day. After that, we will reconvene.
Yeah, I'll compile all the comments for you to review, and then I figure we can go over everything one more time. Make sure you are good with the markup versions. I'll take care of the reformatting now that we're probably done with the bulk of our work. And I'll send that out. So if you have any last minute comments, you can just send those straight to me in case I missed something. But yeah, we'll basically have open house styles. You are not required to attend, so we'll just staff that internally. But yeah, we're trying to make it a little less formal so people can either leave us comment cards, talk to us directly, or just mark up a charter and leave it so it's not intimidating and they have plenty of time to do it.
So what do you want to do? You want to do like 30 days?
Yeah, I figured I'll get both of them done in 2 different weeks in July, and then we can reconvene in August and hopefully wrap up final recommendations, if that sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then we will be all advised on a day to meet, right? Or
Yeah.
just keep it on the same
We're just
schedule.
going to keep it on the same. We'll
Okay.
skip July for the committee and then we'll reconvene in August.
So this is the first Tuesday in August then?
Yes.
Hold on. Uno momento.
Tuesday's the 5th.
Yeah.
What's the date?
It's the 5th. Yeah. I'm good. Is everybody else is good? Nothing else? We can adjourn at 7:05.
Again, my apologies to the committee for showing up late.
We picked up our stuff.
We missed you.
Yeah, you'll get better with your aim.